The wreckage of the starship drifted through the void, its once proud hull torn apart by battle. The distress signal had gone silent hours ago, but Ethan Drake never ignored a call for help, not when there was even a slim chance of survivors. His small salvage ship, Wayfarer, cut through the debris field like a predator, its scanners searching for any sign of life. "Come on, don't be another ghost ship," he muttered, adjusting the controls. The readings were faint, but there it was, a life sign, buried beneath a collapsed corridor. He suited up, his heart pounding as he locked his helmet in place. Every second mattered in deep space rescues. With a precise maneuver, he docked with the derelict and forced the airlock open, stepping into the frozen remains of what had once been a luxury transport. The corridors were eerily quiet, lit only by the flickering emergency lights. Bodies floated in the zero gravity, their faces twisted in expressions of terror. Whatever had attacked this ship had shown no mercy. He pushed forward, following the beacon on his wrist display until he reached the wreckage of a sealed compartment. Inside, he found her. She was unconscious, her golden hair fanning out like a halo in the weightless air. A shimmering field of blue energy barely flickered around her body, some kind of personal survival shield. Her breathing was shallow, but she was alive. "You're a lucky one," Ethan murmured, cutting through the debris trapping her. The moment his gloved hand touched her, the energy shield flared and sent a jolt through his body. A flood of images flashed through his mind. Worlds burning, fleets clashing, a pair of piercing violet eyes locking onto his. And then, silence. He gasped, the vision vanishing as quickly as it had come. Shaking it off, he scooped her up and carried her back to the Wayfarer. He barely managed to get her stabilized before she stirred, her eyes fluttering open to reveal those same violet irises that had burned into his mind. "Where am I?" Her voice was soft, but there was a weight behind it, like someone who had seen too much. "You're safe. My name's Ethan Drake. I pulled you out of that wreck." She sat up, wincing, then looked directly into his eyes. "No, you don't understand." Her fingers curled into his flight suit, desperation flickering across her face. "You were meant to find me." Ethan felt a cold shiver run down his spine. "What do you mean? You think this was a rescue?" Her voice dropped to a whisper. "But this was destiny." Before he could process that, the ship's alarms blared. Sensors picked up incoming vessels, fast, aggressive, and heading straight for them. "Who the hell are you?" Ethan demanded. She exhaled, a look of both fear and determination settling over her face. "My name is Seraphine, and if you want to survive, you need to trust me." Outside, the void trembled as the hunters closed in. Ethan's gut told him to bolt, to kick his engines into overdrive and get the hell out of there. But something in Seraphine's eyes stopped him. She wasn't afraid. Not in the way most people would be when death came knocking. She was expectant, like she knew this was coming, like she had been waiting for it. The incoming ships weren't broadcasting identification codes, which was a bad sign. Pirates, mercenaries, or worse, private enforcers from one of the syndicates. And they were fast. "Strap in," Ethan snapped, flipping switches as Wayfarer came to life. "I don't care who you are right now, but if these guys are after you, we need to." Before he could finish, Seraphine reached forward and touched the control panel. The ship changed. The HUD flickered, symbols flashing across the screen in a language Ethan had never seen. The engines surged with raw power, the hum of energy rising to a crescendo. Every sensor, every system, even the weapons, systems he knew his ship didn't have, came online in an instant. Ethan yanked his hands away, staring at her. "What the hell did you just do?" Seraphine didn't answer. She pressed her palm against a screen, and suddenly, a holographic projection of the enemy fleet materialized in front of them. 3 Pursuit-class interceptors. They're running high-energy disruptors, optimized for fast kills. If they reach us, they'll disable your ship and board us within minutes. "Yeah, I got that part," Ethan growled, gripping the controls. "How do you know all this?" "Because they were sent for me." The first enemy ship opened fire. Ethan yanked the controls and rolled Wayfarer to the side. But the speed. His ship had never been this fast before. The inertial dampeners barely kept up, pressing him back into his seat as he shot through the debris field like a ghost. "What did you do to my ship?" "I unlocked it," Seraphine said, her voice calm despite the chaos. "It was never just a salvage vessel. Someone hid its true capabilities from you." Ethan didn't have time to argue. A second blast tore past them, grazing their shields. Except, he hadn't installed shields. "Wayfarer doesn't have shields," he shouted. "It does now." Ethan let out a breath that was half terror, half exhilaration. "All right, lady. If you know what this ship can do, help me fight back." Seraphine nodded and reached forward. The moment her hands touched the console, Wayfarer responded like a living thing. A pair of auto turrets emerged from hidden compartments, locking onto their pursuers with mechanical precision. A targeting system he had never seen before overlaid his vision, guiding his instincts. Ethan didn't question it. He squeezed the triggers. Twin plasma bolts lanced through the void, catching the lead interceptor square in the cockpit. The ship detonated in a flash of blue fire, debris scattering into the dark. The other two broke formation, but Ethan was already moving. He weaved through the wreckage, using the debris as cover, feeling his ship respond as if it was reading his mind. Seraphine worked beside him, her fingers dancing across the console, rerouting power, overriding enemy scans, anticipating every move they made. Who was she? The second ship tried to loop behind them, but Ethan twisted Wayfarer into an impossible corkscrew, a maneuver no ordinary ship could pull off. Another precise shot from the hidden turrets tore through the enemy's engines. A chain reaction of explosions sent the wreck tumbling away. Only one left. The last pilot must have realized they were outmatched. They cut hard and gunned their engines, trying to escape. Seraphine narrowed her eyes. "We can't let them go." Ethan hesitated. "They're retreating. If they report back, more will come. Worse than these." He clenched his jaw. He wasn't a killer. He was a salvager, a drifter. But if what Seraphine was saying was true, he fired. The final ship vanished in a burst of light. Silence settled over the cockpit. The only sound was Ethan's ragged breathing. He turned to Seraphine. "Talk. Now." She exhaled, as if she'd been waiting for this moment. "I wasn't just a passenger on that ship you found me on. I was cargo. The people who attacked us," she glanced at the wreckage outside. "They wanted to make sure I never reached my destination." Ethan folded his arms. "And why's that?" Seraphine hesitated. Then, she held up her hand. A faint, golden energy crackled between her fingers. It swirled and coalesced into a shape, a symbol, one Ethan recognized but didn't want to believe. A mark of the lost Celestine Order. A faction that had vanished centuries ago. A faction with power beyond anything humanity had ever known. "You were never meant to find me, Ethan Drake," Seraphine said. "But now that you have, your fate is tied to mine. You don't have a choice anymore." Ethan ran a hand through his hair, exhaling slowly. "Lady, I hate destiny." She gave a small, almost sad smile. "You won't hate it for long." Somewhere in the vast darkness of space, an unseen force stirred. And Ethan had just taken his first step into something far, far bigger than himself. Ethan stared at the golden energy flickering in Seraphine's palm, his mind racing to keep up. The Celestine Order. A name spoken in myths, history texts, and drunken conspiracy theories at spaceport bars. If she was telling the truth, if she was one of them, then every major power in the galaxy would want her. Dead or captured. His pulse pounded. He had just killed 3 mercenaries in open space. If they were tracking her, then more were coming. "All right," he said slowly, rubbing his temple. "Let's say I believe you." "You do," Seraphine interrupted softly. "Hypothetically," he emphasized, ignoring her knowing look. "That still doesn't explain why you were on that ship, or why a random salvager like me ended up being the one to find you." Seraphine studied him for a moment, as if weighing how much to reveal. Then, she gestured to the co-pilot's seat. "Sit down, Ethan. There's something I need to show you." He hesitated, but curiosity won out. With a sigh, he dropped into the seat, still gripping the controls. "Wayfarer just got a mystery upgrade. You're dropping magic tricks. Mercenaries are trying to turn me into space dust." Start talking before I decide destiny can kiss my ass. Seraphine didn't flinch. Instead, she placed her palm against the ship's console. A surge of golden light rippled outward, and suddenly, Wayfarer's systems flickered again. But this time, it wasn't just new tech coming online. The stars changed. Ethan blinked. One moment, the ship's viewport showed the wreckage-strewn sector they were in. The next, a projection overlay filled the cabin, surrounding them with a sprawling, ancient star map. Not the kind you could pull up from a standard database. This was old. Older than the Federation. Older than any human civilization had mapped. Dozens of points of light glowed within the map, arranged in patterns Ethan couldn't recognize. Some pulsed gently, like beacons. Others remained dark, dead. Seraphine pointed to one in particular. A star system marked with a symbol that looked eerily similar to the one she had conjured with her power. This, she said quietly, is where you need to take me. Ethan frowned. That's deep in the expanse. The expanse was unmapped, unclaimed, and unkind to travelers who wandered too far in. Starship graveyards, lost colonies, rumors of vanished fleets. It was the last place any sane pilot wanted to go. I know, Seraphine replied, but it's the only place where I can be safe, and where you might find the truth about your ship. Ethan hesitated. His ship? She was the mystery here, not Wayfarer, right? But then he thought about what had just happened. The way the ship had reacted. The systems that had been there all along, buried under layers of locks. You're saying Wayfarer was built for this? He asked slowly. Not just built, Seraphine murmured. It was chosen. Ethan almost laughed. Ships don't get chosen. You're wrong, she said. Yours was. And you were too. Ethan ran a hand through his hair, staring at the glowing star map. This was insane. He was a salvager, a nobody, a guy who barely made enough credits to keep his ship flying. And now he was supposed to believe he had some grand purpose? That his ship was special? And yet, the mercenaries, the impossible upgrades, the way Wayfarer had felt different, like it had been waiting for this moment. A long silence stretched between them. Finally, Ethan exhaled sharply and leaned back in his seat. All right, he muttered. Looks like I'm going to the expanse. Seraphine nodded, relief flickering across her face. Then, the proximity alarms blared. Ethan snapped upright. Wayfarer's sensors detected new contacts, 6 ships inbound. Fast. He pulled up the readings, and his blood ran cold. Not mercenaries this time. Federation warships. A transmission came through, crackling with authority. Unidentified vessel, this is the FNS Harbinger. You are ordered to power down your engines and prepare to be boarded. Failure to comply will result in immediate termination. Ethan stared at the screen. Seraphine's voice was calm but firm. They're here for me. Ethan clenched his jaw. His hand hovered over the throttle. He had a choice. Surrender. Hand Seraphine over. Pretend he never got involved. Maybe walk away alive. Or trust her. Trust the ship. Trust the feeling in his gut that told him his life had just taken a turn he could never come back from. He took a deep breath. Hold on, he muttered, gripping the controls. And then he punched it. Wayfarer roared to life, engines flaring with a power Ethan had never felt before. The stars blurred as he dove straight into the unknown. The moment Ethan punched the throttle, Wayfarer responded like a living thing. The ship surged forward, the inertial dampeners barely keeping up as they hurtled toward open space. Behind them, the Federation warships scrambled to react, their weapons charging. They're locking on, Seraphine warned. Ethan gritted his teeth and juked the ship into a sudden roll, narrowly avoiding the first salvo of plasma fire. The blue-white streaks of energy crackled past them, one shot grazing their shields. Wayfarer shuddered, but the shields he hadn't even known existed, held. Tell me you've got more tricks up your sleeve. Ethan barked. Seraphine's fingers danced across the console, and suddenly, Wayfarer's systems came alive again. The HUD flickered with strange symbols, and Ethan felt something shift in his connection to the ship, like an unseen hand guiding his instincts. A warning flashed across the screen. Quantum suppression field detected. FTL jump disabled. Ethan cursed. They're jamming our jump drive. Seraphine's eyes darkened. Not for long. She pressed her palm against the console, and a pulse of golden light spread through the ship's systems. Suddenly, Wayfarer's thrusters burned hotter, faster, as if the very laws of physics had loosened their grip. Ethan didn't question it. He pulled into a hard dive, skimming the edge of a nearby asteroid field. The Federation ships followed, their larger hulls struggling to maneuver through the dense debris. "Hold on," Ethan muttered, flipping a switch. The hidden turrets activated, auto-tracking the closest pursuer. A rapid burst of plasma fire erupted from Wayfarer's sides, forcing the lead frigate to veer off. "One down. 5 to go. They won't stop," Seraphine said. Her voice wasn't afraid, just certain. "They can't let me escape." "Then let's make it hard for them," Ethan shot back. A second ship got too close. Ethan yanked Wayfarer into a brutal spin, dodging another round of suppressive fire. Seraphine's influence over the ship was undeniable. Wayfarer wasn't just reacting, it was anticipating. Then Seraphine's eyes widened. "There's something coming. Something big." Ethan didn't have time to ask what she meant before his sensors lit up. A new contact appeared on the HUD. Massive. The Federation ships broke formation. And then, out of the darkness, it emerged. A leviathan of a warship. Midnight black hull. No visible insignia. No transponder signal. Just an ominous, silent presence that swallowed the stars around it. Ethan's stomach clenched. "That's not Federation." "No," Seraphine said, her voice barely above a whisper. "That's them." Before Ethan could ask who they were, the warship fired. A lance of crimson energy speared through the void, striking the nearest Federation frigate. The ship didn't explode. It simply vanished, like it had never existed. Ethan felt ice crawl down his spine. What the hell was that? "The reason I can't fall into their hands," Seraphine said grimly. The Federation fleet panicked, breaking formation completely. Whatever this warship was, even they weren't prepared to face it. Ethan didn't wait for an invitation. "We're leaving. Now." "But the suppression field?" "Forget it," Ethan growled. "I'll find another way." Seraphine closed her eyes and pressed both hands to the ship's interface. The golden energy surged again, flowing into Wayfarer's systems. The console flickered, and then, quantum suppression field neutralized. Ethan didn't stop to ask how. He slammed the jump drive activation. The engines roared, the stars stretched, and Wayfarer vanished into hyperspace. For a long moment, there was nothing but the hum of the ship and the lingering tension in the air. Ethan let out a shaky breath. "You want to tell me what the hell just happened?" Seraphine leaned back, exhaustion clear in her features. "You just saw why the Celestine Order had to disappear." Ethan narrowed his eyes. "That ship, what was it?" Seraphine met his gaze, her violet eyes filled with something between sorrow and determination. "The reason the galaxy is afraid of the dark," she whispered. Outside, the ship sped deeper into the expanse, and whatever was hunting them was not far behind. Ethan sat in the pilot's chair, staring at the swirling blues and purples of hyperspace, his knuckles white as he gripped the controls. He had no idea where he was taking them, only that anywhere was better than where they'd just been. Behind him, Seraphine slumped against the co-pilot's seat, her breathing slow but steady. Using her strange abilities had drained her, but she was still watching him. Ethan exhaled sharply. "All right," he said, running a hand through his hair. "Time for answers. Real ones." He turned to face her. "That ship back there. The one that erased a damn Federation warship. What was it?" Seraphine was quiet for a moment, as if considering how much to tell him. Finally, she spoke. "They're called the Eclipse." Her voice was barely above a whisper. "And they are not from this galaxy." Ethan frowned. "That's impossible. We've mapped everything, even the expanse. There's nothing out there." She shook her head. "Nothing you can see." A chill crawled up Ethan's spine. "You're saying they've been here the whole time?" Seraphine nodded. "Watching, waiting, influencing." The Celestine Order was the only force that ever stood against them. "And we paid the price." Ethan let out a bitter laugh. "Great. So now I'm in the middle of a war I didn't even know existed." "You were always in it," Seraphine said softly. You just didn't realize it. Ethan scrubbed a hand down his face. And Wayfarer? You said this ship was chosen. What the hell does that even mean? Seraphine hesitated. Then, she placed her hand against the console again. The golden energy flickered, and the ship responded instantly. A new projection filled the cabin. Ethan's breath caught. It was a schematic of Wayfarer, but not as he knew it. Beneath the layers of civilian-grade plating and modified salvage gear, something else was hidden. A framework of unknown alloys. Energy conduits that didn't match any modern design. This ship, Seraphine murmured, is older than the Federation. Older than humanity's first steps into space. Ethan felt his stomach drop. He shook his head. No. I salvaged Wayfarer myself. She was a wreck in an old ship graveyard. There's no way. That graveyard wasn't just random wreckage, Seraphine said. It was a tomb. Ethan stared at her. A tomb for what? Seraphine met his gaze, her violet eyes intense. For the last fleet that tried to stop the eclipse. Silence hung between them. Ethan wanted to argue, to tell her she was wrong. That she had the wrong ship, the wrong guy. He was just a damn scavenger. A drifter. Not some hero of destiny. But deep down, he already knew. The way Wayfarer had responded. The way the ship had felt like it was waking up. Something inside him whispered that this was always meant to happen. Ethan exhaled and leaned back in his seat. So, he said, forcing a smirk he didn't feel. We've got an ancient warship, an enemy that eats planets, and an entire galaxy that doesn't even know what's coming. Seraphine nodded. Ethan chuckled dryly. Yeah, that checks out. Then the proximity alarm blared. Both of them snapped to attention. The ship's sensors screamed warnings. Something had followed them through hyperspace. Ethan's hands flew over the controls. That's not possible. You can't track a ship through. A cold, inhuman voice crackled over the comms. You cannot run. A single, dark shape emerged in the hyperspace stream behind them. A ship unlike anything Ethan had ever seen. The eclipse had found them. Seraphine's eyes darkened. They're not here to capture us anymore. Ethan swallowed hard. Then I hope this ship has one more trick left. Because if it didn't, their next stop was the void. Ethan's heart pounded as he stared at the impossible sight behind them. A black, shifting void where a ship should be. The Eclipse vessel wasn't just chasing them through hyperspace. It was warping it, bending reality around itself like a predator swimming through dark waters. The cold voice echoed again. You cannot run. You cannot hide. You were never meant to escape. Seraphine's fingers moved over Wayfarer's console, golden light flickering as she fought to keep them ahead. But Ethan could see the readings. Whatever the Eclipse ship was doing, it was pulling them in. Gravity distortions, time dilations, things that shouldn't be possible inside hyperspace. Ethan gritted his teeth. Tell me you've got something, because I don't plan on dying today. Seraphine's eyes were focused, determined. I do. But you won't like it. Try me. She pressed both palms against the controls. Wayfarer's systems flickered, and Ethan felt the ship shudder. Not in fear, but in awakening. The ship was never built for running, Seraphine said. It was built for fighting. The ship's core surged, golden veins of energy lighting up the dashboard. New systems activated, ones Ethan had never seen before. Weapons. Shield harmonics. A pulse of power unlike anything in modern ship design. Then, Seraphine looked at him. We turn around. Ethan blinked. Excuse me? If we keep running, they'll drag us into their reality. Into them. But if we turn around and hit them here, inside hyperspace, she took a breath. We can sever their hold on this plane. Maybe even destroy them. Ethan exhaled sharply. You're asking me to charge straight at the nightmare ship that eats reality. Seraphine met his gaze. Yes. He let out a laugh. Half disbelief, half exhilaration. Wayfarer, you crazy bastard. I hope you're as good as she says you are. Then, he grabbed the controls and spun the ship around. The Eclipse entity loomed ahead, its shape twisting and shifting, countless eyes, real or imagined, fixating on them. Foolish, the voice intoned. Ethan slammed the throttle forward. Wayfarer surged, golden energy crackling through its frame as its long-dormant systems came alive. The ancient warship had been waiting for this moment, for its true purpose. The Eclipse vessel opened, black tendrils reaching outward, a darkness so absolute that it swallowed the very light of hyperspace. But Seraphine's power shone brighter. She extended her hands, and the golden energy from Wayfarer exploded outward, forming a radiant shield against the creeping void. Ethan. Now. Ethan gritted his teeth and fired. Wayfarer's newly awakened weapons unleashed a pulse of light. A single, concentrated burst of energy, not meant to kill, but to sever. The moment the blast hit, the Eclipse ship screamed. Reality shuddered. The black ship unraveled, its tendrils snapping, its shape disintegrating like ash in a storm. The voice, so confident, so certain of their doom, howled as it was torn from existence. Then, silence. Ethan gasped, his hands still tight on the controls, his chest heaving. Wayfarer drifted, the golden light fading. Hyperspace stabilized. The dark presence was gone. Seraphine slumped back, exhausted but triumphant. We did it. Ethan let out a shaky laugh. I don't know what the hell we did, but yeah. For the first time, Seraphine smiled. Then let's finish this. Ethan nodded and set a new course. The Expanse. The heart of the lost Celestine Order. The place where all of this had started. And where, maybe, they could finally find answers. Wayfarer hummed beneath his hands, no longer just a salvager's ship, but something more. A relic of an old war. A key to a forgotten past. And the first light against the coming darkness. As they jumped to their next destination, Ethan knew one thing for certain. This wasn't the end. It was just the beginning.